Greetings ladies and gentlefish, and today I'm going to talk about this thing, the Valentine 2, Tier 4 Russian Premium Light Tank. This is one of the Lend Lease vehicles. There are 3 of them in the game at the moment. They are vehicles that were sent from the British to the to the Russians during the Second World War, and they appear in the game as Russian premium tanks, and this is one of them. What do you need to know about this tank? Well, there's a few things. Firstly, it's not a very common sight on the battlefield, and there is a reason for that. But anyway, let's get on to it. It is a Tier 4 machine. How much gold will this thing actually cost you? Off the top of my head, I don't know. How much does it cost? It's 1,000 gold. So it doesn't cost the earth. I think when I bought it, I actually bought it on special, if I'm honest, rather than paying full price for it. And what do you get with it? Well, you get 380 hit points, which for a Tier 4 machine is actually alright. It's actually more than you get on the Matilda, I believe, the Tier 4 British medium tank. Yeah, that gets 370. So you actually get a good slab of health, which is nice. 15 tons, who cares? Engine power 140. The power to weight ratio on this thing is not great, 8.86, less than 10 horsepower per ton, which kind of starts indicating how this thing's to be played. It's not a scout tank, despite the fact that it's a light tank. Speed limit 32, which is not very good, and often you won't reach that. 50-degree traverse speed, so it turns fairly quickly. Hull armour and turret armour. 60 all round on the hull, 65 all round on the turret. That's good for Tier 4. Now, going to the armour in more detail in a moment. I'm not going to talk about the gun just yet. Turret traverse speed 48 degrees a second, which is good. View range 350, which is meh. Signal range 570, which is also a bit meh. So what do you get with this thing? Well, I really want to say you get a pocket heavy tank, and that's what you get if you play the British Valentine, the Tier 4 light tank. Like the AMX-40 and like the Matilda, you get good armour and quite a decent slab of health considering the tier and etc. But this is not a pocket heavy tank. And why is this not a pocket heavy tank? Well, because of the armour in the gun. As I say, I'll talk about the armour in a bit, but for now, let's just talk about the gun, shall we? There it is, 45mm gun, and you should immediately be worried because this is a Tier 2 weapon, and this is a Tier 4 tank. You should also be worried because it's used on the BTSV, which is Tier 3, the Valentine, which we're talking about, the T127, which is Tier 3, and the LTP, which is also Tier 3. Oh dear. So, what do you get? Well, it's 45mm gun, good rate of fire, 26.25, average penetration with armour piercing is terrible, 51mm of penetration, even on Tier 4 is not good, 84 if you load APCR, that's not good, that's just passable at Tier 4, it means that you have a chance of penetrating a Matilda, for instance, or a Hetzer, and HE penetration 23, garbage, average damage, garbage. Dispersion, so accuracy at 100 meters, not very good. Aim time 1.7, that is good. That's the only good stat, sorry, one of 2 good stats, that and the rate of fire that this gun has going for it. And who cares about the weight, it's just part of the vehicle. So basically, this is a gun that will fire an awful lot, it will fire very quickly, and it will bounce on your target an awful lot because it's not very accurate. So in order to aim for weak spots, you have to be up close. And even then, some of the time you're going to have to fire APCR. If you do not like premium ammunition, if you think it is the devil's bane and it should never, ever, ever be used, then under no circumstances should you buy this tank. Because it needs premium ammunition, like a drug addict needs, well, drugs. I mean, you can see my ammo loadout. I have no high explosive because the high explosive ammunition on this gun is awful. It is not worth bothering with. 40 AP. I do use them most of the time, but 21 APCR, that's a large slab of premium ammunition. And I can argue that I should carry more, to be honest. The other thing you'll notice, 61 shells, that sounds like quite a lot, but when you have a rate of fire of 26.25 and you only do 47 damage per shot, you burn through that ammo very quickly indeed. So, the gun is garbage. Utter garbage. As I say, I'll talk about the armour in more detail in a bit. So, I'm not going to talk about the grind, it's pointless, this is a premium tank, there is no grind. I will reiterate though, because it's a premium tank, you tend to get reduced repair costs. The gun is so bad that the APCR ammo is not actually all that expensive. It's only 800 credits per shot. That's still not cheap, but you'll notice the AP is 14. I mean, the ammo is cheap. But as it's a premium tank, you can notice I don't have a crew in it, but you can transfer a crew from your Russian light tanks straight into it. So this is my MT-25 crew, for instance, and they will be able to drive around in this thing fine, no penalties. They will not receive, as long as they are a Russian light tank crew in this premium Russian light tank, they can use all their skills and everything to full effect, and so you can use it to get the daily double, for instance, on your crew twice, which is quite nice, which is the main reason to have this tank. I'm going to be honest. Don't pay any attention to the crew skills on this crew. You shouldn't really be using this tank and giving them specific crew skills for this tank, because you should only really be using a crew from another Russian light tank. This is not the sort of tank you want to have specially, so I'm not going to bother talking about crew skills on it because it is completely pointless. Equipment, this won't take very long. If we look at the equipment available, this is only a tier 4 machine, so there isn't actually an awful lot of it. Toolbox, not a bad idea. Gun laying drive, 10% to aim speed. Let's be honest, the gun has a 1.7 second aim time. 10% of that is 0.17 seconds. Do you want to pay 500,000 credits to have that? Didn't think so. Coated optics, 10% view range, but the view range is bad to start with, and it's 500,000 credits, don't bother. Binocular telescope, not a bad idea, you can transfer it to another vehicle. Camo net, ditto. Light spall liner is not actually a terrible idea, because people will hit you with high explosive in this a fair amount because your armor's quite good, but I probably wouldn't bother. Improved vents, not a terrible idea. It's 50,000 credits, so it's one of the cheaper bits of kit, and it just gives you an all-round buff to your crew. So what I use is improved vents, and then I just give it my communal binoculars and camo net if I'm going to use it, basically. So is there anything else that I really need to say about this? Oh, I do. Okay, I need to emphasize, because this is a tank about armor, angle your tank. Don't be afraid to show them a good chunk of side armor. It's 60. As I said, I will talk about the armor in a minute, but it's 60, you've got tracks, it's nice from the side. So learn how to angle your tank, angle your armor, and don't be afraid to use some APCR. You'll need it. Frustratingly, if we go to the LTP, which is a tier lower, pardon me, this is a tier 3 light tank, Russian premium. This gets the same gun. Worrying, I know, but instead of getting 61 shells, this gets 150. And have you seen the size of the two? It doesn't make any sense to me either, but you know, there we go, them's the breaks. Without further ado, let's just go and have a look at the armour scheme. So here we are in Tank Inspector to have a quick look at the armour scheme of the Valentine, as that is kind of the selling point of the tank. This is the best feature about it, in theory anyway. So there's the collision model. What do we have? Well, you can see that in places the armour is up to 125mm thick, and you'll notice that's in a really weird place. On the side of the turret, on the left hand side of the turret, there's this little piece, little slab, which in places goes up to what, 95, there might be a bit of 125 somewhere there, but it's a tiny little bit, so kind of ignore that. Basically the best armour is 60 odd. So if we look at it from the front, what have we got? Well, turret, yep, 65, cool. Gun mantlet shoots up, there's a patch of 125, and then the main bit of the gun mantlet is only 60 odd, you know, then there's a lump of 40 armour with a hole behind it where the gun is, then the gun, and then you're back out through here. So the turret's not too bad. Front of the hull, 60, yeah, fair enough, 60. Lower plate, garbage. If you shoot the lower plate, even from kind of quite close range, I mean, you're going to pen it at any angle when you can see it. But what about the upper front plate? Okay, so if you're facing this straight on, this is 30mm of armour sloped back at an auto bounce angle, which is interesting. And so from range, this is very bouncy. However, if you're up close, there's a very good chance you're going to have a shot down onto it ever so slightly. And if you are not at that auto bounce angle, ooh, this plate starts looking 40mm thick and very dodgy. So you can expect to get some bounces from this at longer range, but at closer ranges it's a bit touch and go. There's also this section, again, they'll just pen that all day. From the top, yeah, artillery will have a field day, it normally does. What about the sides and rear? So sides are 60mm thick, as it says on the tin, and actually if you angle it at something like this, now, this is interesting. So your sides shoot up to 90 something, 100 odd. Your front, if we angle it a bit more, like 45 degrees, goes up to 90 odd, 80, yeah, something like this. So you've got like 90 odd effective armour, 80 something, 90 something effective armour. But what about these parts? Oh, okay, that's an auto bounce. Oh dear, that goes down to 40, auto bounce. So if you shoot it just there, you'll go through, but if you shoot it there, it'll bounce. It's interesting, but if you angle your armour about like this, so about 45 degrees, it's kind of, you make yourself as tough as possible. And there are still places where you can be penned, but it's not trivial. The rear, well, yeah, the rear. On paper, it's 60mm, and it is 60mm. In practice, look at that. Look at that fat backside. So, if you need to kill one of these from the rear, don't shoot it on this strip. Don't even bother aiming for the lower plate. Just put a shot straight through there. 17mm of armour. The sloping is irrelevant. You'll go through. So yeah, this has got some decent armour, but do be aware there are places where, depending on the angle, you can get penned like it's going out of fashion. So don't. But then the flip side is that you will only ever see tier 4 tanks at worst on this, in this. So you know, it's a bit of a take it or leave it. Certainly don't be afraid to take shots to the side of your tank. You've got tracks there. I mean, if someone shoots you straight through the tracks, that's 80mm of equivalent armour. You've got tracks to eat the shots. You've got good side armour. I mean, this thing side scrapes well, especially with the tracks adding a spaced armour. So don't be afraid to hide your front, side scrape out around the corner and get some bounces on the side armour. Anyway, that's the armour scheme. So let's get back to the garage, I believe. So, quickly back from having a look at the armour scheme. And before we get onto a game, I do want to very quickly mention one of the most important things about this tank, limited matchmaking. It gets very limited matchmaking. In fact, it gets the most limited matchmaking in the game that I'm aware of. This thing will only ever see tier 4 games. It never has to shoot at a tier 5 or a tier 6 tank. And for this reason, you should never, ever, ever platoon this thing up with any other tank apart from a Valentine 2, in my opinion. You might possibly be able to get away with something like an LTP, but they won't thank you for it. Because if you platoon up with another tier 4 tank, they will drag you into tier 5 games, tier 6 games, and if you platoon up with a tier 4 scout tank, they will drag you into tier 8 games, where you are literally useless. So, please, please do not platoon in this thing with anyone unless they're also driving a Valentine 2. It's one of those tanks. But yeah, it only ever sees tier 4 games. It is always top tier. So after that quick interlude, let's have a look at a quick game, shall we? So here we are with the replay. Now I know I normally show you 2 replays in these reviews, one when you're top tier and one when you're bottom tier, but seeing as this thing, you know, it doesn't care if it's top or bottom tier, we're just gonna go with a one game. So we are here on Sacred Valley. I was about to say it's a tier 4 game, but as we've already established, of course it's a tier 4 game. It's always a tier 4 game. I'm trying to work out what to do and eventually decide, right, well, yeah, sod it, we're going to go through the Valley of Death. Now this is a patch 9.0 replay, and so you'll notice, A, the spawn is in a new place on this map, because the spawn used to be just down here where I'm driving up to now. And B, there's a path that goes straight through the middle of the map. I'm not going to take that, I'm just, you know, I haven't played this map very much at the time I played this game, so I'm just going straight through the Valley of Death and having a look at who's coming with me. And my heart is not filled with joy. Our B1s seem to have decided that they're either going to sit at base or slowly and ponderously make their way along what is traditionally sort of the light tank and medium tank route, but, you know, never mind. Whatever. So it's me and this Hetzer. And Hetzer's very good, so it's good to have him there, but it is just me and this Hetzer, which is a little bit disconcerting. Never mind. I'm just going to keep pushing up. And you can see, sorry, you can see immediately that this thing is not exactly fast. I mean, we're doing just under 30 kph. Now at the moment we're driving through some water, yeah, fair enough, but yeah, that's about the speed you can expect to go. It's not exactly fast, but it turns well, so it's not all bad. Oh, Hetzer just destroyed our T-46 at D6, and that does worry me ever so slightly, but I'm not fast enough to go around there now, and we've got enough of our team in the vicinity that they should be able to handle it, right? Right? Yeah, I know. Rampant optimism there. Keep pushing through. The Hetzer appears to be covering the route through from the middle of the map. That BT7's getting nailed, and oh, I just found some friends. Oh dear. I found all the friends. So, okay. Angle and AP bounces on a cruiser too, but doesn't bounce on the Marder, so I take one hit there, bounce a shot, keep bouncing more shots, kill the Marder. And I'm trying to get AP through the side of this B1, but it's just not working. And I'm tracked here, but all he's doing is taking out my tracks. The B1's gun is terrible. I switched to APCR and shoot through his weak spot, by the way. On the B1, that unusable howitzer is a weak spot. So yeah, the B1's gun is terrible, and it looks like he might have the stock gun. And so he's actually failing to go through my unangled side armor, which is kind of amusing. So now I angle and kill the B1. Who's next? Moving so that Hetzer doesn't shoot me from behind, because that would be bad. Switching back to armor piercing ammo. And Panzer. Oh, he managed to hurt me. Panzer 38 NA, when it's in a tier 4 game, it gets quite a good gun. I mean, you have to give it some respect. And I'm backing off here so that I can't get shot by that Hetzer too. Keep putting shots into that Panzer. Oh, and there we go, I die. Hetzer takes me out. But we're going to keep following this game. Now, it looks like that Hetzer wasn't using the howitzer. I think he was using the stock 75mm gun, which is not a terrible gun, especially if you're in a tier 4 game. And I'm trying to draw people's attention to this central pass. Now, if I'd had some more support, then I might have been okay and survived a bit longer, but, you know, I didn't. I just had one Hetzer, who is also now dead, and we kind of got a bit rushed, a little bit ganked. But, you know, there we go. Them's the breaks. I got 3 kills, and I ended up doing something like 850 damage, which is respectable. And eventually I will switch to one of the other tanks. I swear to God, I want to watch this one out, because the scores are still quite close. 9-8. Despite a little bit of heroism there, you know, the pass has been overrun, and for some reason we've got 2 B1s and one of them is still sitting by our base, which is a little bit worrying. But you know, this is a tier 4 game. Those guys are quite possibly inexperienced. They don't really know what they're doing. What are you gonna do? 10-8. So our team has the upper hand, and I really wish I would oh yeah, having a chat. I really wish I'd changed perspective here. There we go. Alright, so just having a look at what's happening near the enemy base. And yeah, we're winning 10-8, and these guys are pushing on the base, and we do have some people in the vicinity of our base to defend it. So I'm not feeling too bad about this. Oh god, there's a Marder. Okay. Come on guys, don't screw this up. And a Hetzer. Oh good lord. Oh dear. That T-82's screwed. Yep, he's dead. Marder's on low health though. B1 takes a pasting, and it's at this point I start worrying, I'll be honest. Hetzer, from the front. Don't do it. Take him from the side. Now this B1 is tracked, in all fairness. So he's kind of limited. And he's taking bounces. So if this was the Hetzer that nailed me, and I'm not saying it was, I think he's using the stock gun, as I say, and so he could get some bounces on the B1. And the B1, our B1 appears to be going around to try and flank him. 3 damage. Is that guy firing high explosive? I switch views a little bit, check on our base. And, yep, Panzer IV-A takes out that Hetzer. Excellent. So they've only got 2 of them left. One of them, sorry about all this flitting around. I should have just selected the guy I wanted to look at. So here is Armada. They've got the Covenanter down there. I don't know where the Hetzer is. We're at 96% on the cap, 98, 100, and we win. Now, this game. It didn't look like an amazingly good game, let's be honest. You know, I died about halfway through. I did rack up 3 kills and put down some damage though, but it didn't look like a fantastic game. However, the Valentine is not a tank that a lot of people own. It's not a tank you see very often, for a good reason. It's not very good. It's not a tank you see very often, and people who do own it don't seem to do all that well. So whilst this wasn't an amazing game for me, I got like 850 damage, which is actually respectable. Let's not forget, that's a respectable amount. But I did actually come top of my team and get my Ace Tanker badge with that game. So you don't actually have to do that much to pick up an Ace Tanker in this thing. You just, you know, use your armour a bit, know how to side scrape, know how to angle, switch to APCR when necessary, know where weak spots are, and I'm not saying all that's easy, but the requirement for an Ace Tanker, I guess, is what I'm saying. The requirement is quite low. Anyway, let's go back to the garage for a few concluding remarks. So, what do I think about this thing overall? Nah, I wouldn't bother personally if I were you. You know, if you're desperate for a tank to train your Russian light crews, then I guess you could, but I really can't recommend it. And as I say, I just wouldn't bother. It does not get a thumbs up from me. Sorry. Nah. There are much more. If you want to buy a premium tank, there are much more fun premium tanks that you could buy. There we go. They're my thoughts. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please feel free to catch some of my other videos and or subscribe to my channel. And I wish you happy hunting on that battlefield. Ciao, ciao.